So that's good, and we're back too. Our key grip / segment 3 guest Tom Campbell was asking us to do some Jimmy Fallon impressions, but I can barely impress myself.
That's
so
Jimmy Fallon.
Yeah, I don't know what. Maybe I didn't hear it right, but we do have Ryan Kerrigan on the line. Ryan, are you there?
Yep.
Hey Ryan, thank you for joining us, and this is, I think you're going up the list on a number of appearances on Gold and Black Live, which I know is got to be one of the great highlights in your life. This is number 2, I think. But first of all,
some sort of prize now.
Yeah, it's a big prize for you. But really, thank you for joining us. And Ryan, first and foremost, you're back to being a student at Purdue and taking classes. Though, how has that been for you? And I know you're like any senior, eager to get I'm sure to get that done. But how's that experience of being back in West Lafayette been for you?
It was an adjustment at first for sure. I mean, going from playing in the NFL in the fall to now going back to school after taking pretty much an entire year off of school, it's an adjustment. But I'm back in the swing of things now. I'm enjoying my classes, and like you said, I'm just eager to get done.
How many hours are you taking?
I'm currently in 15, and then I'll have, I'm not sure the number, but it's not that many more after that.
Good. Well, and then that, is it hard? Has it been hard to concentrate just because, again, all of what you've been through leading into that? I mean, is it, you're somebody that's always possessed a fair amount of focus in doing what you do. Have you had to call upon that to keep yourself motivated to doing the job, or are you mature enough now that it's a well-oiled machine?
Well, I know what I got to do, and I know I want to finish what I started with my degree, and so that's enough motivation for me to come back and be able to focus and do my homework and do what it takes for me to do to be able to succeed in my classes, because I know football isn't forever, so I do need to get this degree.
Go ahead, Brian.
Ryan, did you have to study more as a rookie in the NFL, or now that you're back in school?
Well, definitely more of the NFL. I mean, going and turn into a new situation. But I mean, I'm studying a lot now too. I mean, I'm coming home every day. I have 2 or 3 readings to do nightly, so it's definitely a lot of work. But I mean, it'll be worth it in the long run.
Well, there's been a lot of talk around here, and obviously you're close to the Purdue football program, but a change at defensive coordinator and maybe a move, and they certainly have left this open for debate whether Purdue will show a 3-man front or a 4-man front. But you've obviously assimilated well into the NFL in the 3-man front, playing on the outside. First, maybe tell us a little bit about how that transition was for you and how it might be if Purdue makes some changes in that direction. What do guys go through having that different alignment defensively?
Well, it's a tough transition because it's a lot different from anything I've ever done before. From going from a 4-3 defense at Purdue, where I was in a 3-point or a 4-point stance at all times, to standing up all the time in a 2-point stance and seeing the field from a whole different point of view. So it's a big adjustment, but I mean, it's just like anything. The more you do it, the better you're going to feel at it. And, it just takes repetition. That's one thing it does take. It does take time for it all to come together to really stand out.
Going from playing with your head down as an end to playing with your head up as a linebacker and standing up, just what was the biggest change there? I'd imagine you kind of see the game from a completely different perspective. I'd imagine that changes things quite a bit, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, I went from in college, you put your head down in a 3-point stance. You don't really see much except for kind of what's straight ahead of you, like tunnel vision. But when you're in a 2-point stance, you can see the wide receivers, the quarterback. You can see everything. So it's a big adjustment from that point of view, because you have to see the game from a different point of view, because a lot of times you're covering those receivers and those tight ends. So you got to be cognizant of where they're lined up and what they're doing. It's a lot more thinking, but once you got it down pat, you're more reacting versus thinking, and that's what you want in football.
All right, a question from one of our chat room folks. Billy said we've already asked you hit a lot on the typical topics, but what about you growing up in Muncie? Were you a Colts fan growing up? What team did you grow up liking the most?
Well, I like to say I was pretty big bandwagon fan when I was growing up. I mean, I liked whoever was good. I had a Brett Favre jersey at one time. I had a John Elway jersey at another. I mean, I just liked everybody. But I mean, as I started to get a little older, I became a Colts fan and kind of pledged my allegiance to them when it came to fanhood because I mean they were close and my.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if you're on your way to Muncie, if you're, and this is being facetious at best here, but driving down, because, you know, one of Peyton Manning's landing spots, supposedly, if that all comes to pass, is Washington. I suppose you would accept him on your football team if given the opportunity.
Well, I mean, anytime you think about a guy like Peyton Manning, it's obviously is exciting, but right now, I mean, I think it's all just speculation, and I mean, it's tough to really comment on it because I think it's doing a disservice to guys like Rex Grossman and John Beck, who put in a lot of time with this organization already. So it's tough to comment on that, but I mean, Peyton Manning is a phenomenal player, and it'll be interesting to see where he does end up.
Excellent answer, and the right answer, I would
well
say.
Played.
Well, very well played and correct. What about, you know, with the Redskins and obviously looking ahead to next year? What are you going to be focusing on in terms of year 1 to year 2 improvement? What can Ryan Kerrigan do better to bring? You know, he obviously had a very, very good rookie year, but what do you want to focus on? What after a year, what do you evaluate that you need to do most heading into 2012?
I think I just need to get better, just continue to get more comfortable dropping in coverage and just playing out of a 2-point stance and also rushing out of a 2-point stance. I think that's kind of an underrated element of converting to a 3-4 linebacker position because it isn't as easy to rush out of a 2-point stance as it is a 3-point stance. So that's just something I got to get more comfortable with and get that down.
You know, you look at the situation, Brian, and we've watched Ryan evolve as a player so much in his time at Purdue, and go from a guy that you know, you weren't a 4 or 5 star guy coming out of high school, but did that ever? I mean, in terms of how heavily you recruited, it's not that the schools didn't want you; they did. But talk about it evolving from a guy that, and a lot of Purdue players are in the same boat, where they come in as guys that are not always 4 and 5 star guys, but they're wanting to make an impact. Did that ever make an impact with you, or did you ever feel like you had anything to prove to anybody but yourself, or did you worry mostly just about trying to make the football team and get on the field as soon as possible?
It's a little bit of everything. I mean, obviously, I came out. I wanted to be the best player I could possibly be, and I knew I had to work my butt off to do that. So that was kind of my mantra from the moment my senior football season ended in high school and until the time I was a senior in college, and until now. So it's you know, I looked at it as, you know, I got a great opportunity to play Division I football in the Big Ten, and I was going to do everything I can to help my team be successful and help myself be successful. So that was kind of my mentality going into it.
How much did it help you to come back for your senior season? I don't know how much you even looked into going after your was it 2000?
2009
right.
season.
Yeah, I don't know if you really considered it after 2009, but just how much progress did you make from the end of your junior year to the end of your senior year?
I made a lot of progress, and I think the biggest thing is that it was just a mentality, just going out there knowing that my team was counting on me to make plays, and that I need to be that guy that everyone, you know, turn to make that play in crunch situations and throughout the first quarter and the early parts of the game. So I knew I had to be that guy, and that was kind of what changed for me the most, is that mentality, and that kind of fueled me on physically, was the mentality that I had to be the guy that makes the play.
You know, you look at that, and Kawann Short, to some extent, is a similar situation. I don't know how much you were able to watch Purdue this year. I'm sure you got to see the Boilermakers some. Did you talk to Kawann about that at all? But also, you know, again, Kawann's made the active decision to play another year, and all indications are that he might have been a 3rd, 4th round pick. Talk about that and just how much you kind of addressed in the last question, but the ability to make a big jump and knowing when you've made that right decision.
Well, I talked to KK a little bit about it. I mean, because he knew I was in a similar situation coming out my junior year, but mine was a little different in regard that I had broken my foot in the last game of the season, and I would have had to have good workouts in order to elevate my draft stock, and I wouldn't have been able to do that. So so that made my decision a little easier for me. For him, it was a pretty tough decision because he had such a great year this year, and he has so much potential. And I'm glad he looked at it the way he did, because I kind of looked at it as, okay, they're saying I could be a third-round pick this year, and with all the DN, there was a good defensive end class that year in 2009 or 2010, and I just thought, I could come out next year, I could have a really good senior year, enjoy my senior season, and try to get back to a bowl game, which unfortunately we didn't, and hopefully elevate my draft stock. So I'm hoping KK can do the same, and with what I've seen from him so far working out this offseason, I think he can do that.
Ryan, you're obviously pretty well off right now financially. How has money changed you, if at all?
Would you like to buy dinner? No, go ahead.
West Point Steakhouse.
It's funny thing. I can honestly say it hasn't, because I was out to eat with a couple of friends just a little bit ago, probably 3 weeks ago, and the waitress asked me, "Do you want a side of ranch with that?" And I said, "How much is that? How much does that cost?" And she was like, 75 cents. I said, "Oh no thanks." So I don't think it's changed me at all, considering my still frugal spending habits.
Yeah.
So you didn't pick up the tab then?
I picked up my tab.
Well, at least you paid for your own. That's good.
We have split checks.
All right. Well, if you come back and go to GBI's office sometime, we'll even though you're making the big bucks and we're not, we'll still take you to lunch sometime, anytime. But no, we don't
have any ranch.
Yeah, we don't have any ranch dressing though in the office, I don't think. All right. Question from Sam: what were your emotions like at the NFL Combine? Of course, the NFL Combine going on right now in Indianapolis. But were you nervous, excited? Describe the experience for you a year ago at this time.
It's kind of cool because you watch if you're a sports fan like me and you watch a combine, you see it every year, and you wonder how you would project doing all those drills and all the measurables. So it was pretty cool to be there and actually do it. But the one thing a lot of people don't see is the couple of days of interviews and the couple of days of medical you have before you actually get to do any physical activity. And I think that's what kind of wears on you a little bit, because it's a stressful time, because you have to be on your game at all times when you're in the interview meeting, when you're in the meeting rooms doing your interviews. So, it's but once you get to the on-field drills, it's fun, because that's what you've been working on for the past couple months since your football season ended, and you finally get to showcase your talent.
What did you do to prep for your interview? I mean, there's not NFL Combine for dummies, I don't suppose, but I mean, in terms of, because you get asked some zinger-type questions, I'm sure, just like in any job interview, some questions that probably are psychologically driven to be able to determine your personality and those kind of things. Was that difficult for you?
Not really. I mean, a lot of it is, like you said, it's like a job interview. They want to know your background, want to know like your legal records, if you have any criminal history and stuff like that. So I mean, it's pretty straightforward, but also I mean it is psychological too. They want to test you on the board and put you through some X's and O's terminology. So they definitely want to judge your aptitude, and I think it's good. I think it's a good way to find out a lot about a player.
I would imagine they probably didn't have very many questions for you then, if you were talking about grades, if you've ever gotten in trouble, stuff like that. Were your interviews pretty short then?
For the most part, yeah, they're pretty straightforward. I mean, because a lot of the times they know when they're asking you a question, they already know the answer. They just want to hear it from you. So I mean, a lot of times they just a couple of times they wouldn't even really ask me. I just had to do X's and O's type stuff.
A question from Billy, also from here on the chat board. What was the weirdest question that you were asked, or one that may have caught you most off guard?
I was asked if I had a choice, would I rather be a cat or a dog?
And how did you answer?
I mean, how do you answer that? But, I mean, naturally, I'm a dog lover, and I'm not a big fan of cats, so I said a dog, and I think that's a good answer.
I think that's a good answer for you.
They're a little more aggressive in nature than a cat.
I think a defensive end, you want to be, or outside linebacker, or whatever. I think that's the right answer. I don't know, in football, where would a cat be the right answer? At corner? maybe.
Cats can clean themselves at least.
Yeah, he can be sneaky, all those kinds of things. I don't know. That's a good question, and from that standpoint. Well, Ryan, hey, thank you very much for your time, and we will try not to ask you on the show more than 2 or 3 more times in the next 6 months. No, we appreciate it very much. We wish you the best of luck and the rest of your studies. And I know from a Purdue perspective, at least our readers, were very excited to keep up on number 91 this year. And the job that you did. A little bit hard to get used to that jersey number, but I know as Purdue fans, it will be fun to watch for a long time to come. One last question I thought of. I know that Purdue has made some. Drew Brees has kind of been the face of Purdue's NFL alumni, and there've been some moves and some things that you're going to be doing with Purdue that will be kind of moving somewhat into that role, or at least having an effect with that. Tell us a little bit about that and what that means to you.
It means a lot to still be associated with Purdue because I've had so many great times here, and this university is very dear to my heart. So it's good to be able to come back and be involved with the 12th Boiler organization and kind of do things that are going to help put money back into Purdue University. So that's special to me and something I'm proud to do.
Yeah, well, that's and I think you're going to get the opportunity to do a great job, and I think that's one of the best things that's going on right now with Purdue football is the involvement of the alumni and the importance of those folks like yourself coming back. All right, Ryan. Well, thanks again, and drive safe if you're on the road, and we'll look forward to talking to you again sometime soon. All right, we're going to take a short break, and we're going to kick Brian off the set and bring Tom Campbell in, and we'll talk Senior Day photos and memories. It should be a very interesting segment, so we'll look forward to do that. Take a couple-minute break. We'll be back shortly on Gold and Black Live.
Just one night. One team victorious. The story behind the score. The rivalries. The big plays. From the sidelines to you. On the air, online. Are you ready for the frenzy? Friday Night Frenzy. High school football from where you live.
Check out the Purdue collection now at Follett's. Boiler up with Nike Fantastic T-shirts, League and Champion fashion colors. Simply fabulous, simply Follett's. Purdue pride everywhere on game day. Nike sideline, worn by the team, by the players, and by you. And make every day game day with tailgate toss. Follett's, Purdue pride, a Purdue tradition, 17 game day locations.
West Point Steakhouse is a family-owned restaurant known for premium quality steaks. Open for dinner Thursday through Saturday. Stop by for the Thursday night prime rib special or Friday and Saturday night specials like pasta and seafood. Be sure to come and enjoy all the food and fun at West Point Steakhouse.
You can now get a quote or buy car insurance 24 hours a day. Call me, State Farm Agent Trent Johnson, at 743-9595 and see how much money you can save today.
Going to the Purdue game? Stay at Hilton Garden Inn, West Lafayette at the Wabash Landing. Your family will love the well-appointed guest rooms, the pool, whirlpool, fitness center, the breakfast buffet, and the amazing Hilton Garden Inn staff. Located just 4 blocks from Purdue University, Hilton Garden Inn has long been the choice for Purdue fans. Call today for a reservation and make Hilton Garden Inn your #1 choice.
When you see it happen, report it. Send us your news stories, photos, and videos with our Report It feature. It's easy with WLFI.com and the WLFI smartphone app. With a few simple clicks, you can send videos and photos of breaking news coverage. See your submissions on air as part of our broadcast or online in the Report It gallery. WLFI.com. Always mobile, always connected.
All right, segment 3, Gold and Black Live, and our guest list has just been upgraded. Not that's a slam on Brian, but he's left, so we can do that. And I know he's not looking at. Brian might be looking at the web and driving at the same time, as we all know Brian, but. Tom Campbell with us, and Tom has been our photographer since 1997.
Is that right?
And I mean, he's obviously been Purdue's as well. But hard to believe that we will be embarking on football season number 16, I believe it will be this year. But welcome to the show, and you're here at your own risk.
Well, it's just the kind of weight that sort of a reputation has, is that you can get Ryan Kerrigan to be the warm-up act.
That's right.
So
and that's always a good thing. And Ryan, you talk about guys that favorite guys to shoot, and knowing the guys that you could shoot and almost be guaranteed of getting something special. Ryan's got to be one of those guys in that category.
No question. You could just wait and just watch him and put the camera on him, and you're going to get something great almost every game. And we certainly got a lot of great pictures of Ryan. So Ryan, if you're out there anywhere, thank you for all the opportunities.
And always the ones of him being held or being strangled or those kinds of things.
And he never complained.
Yeah.
He never complained. So
yeah.
It just goes to show you that you can probably call a penalty. They always say you can call a penalty on every play in football, and what they don't call is almost as important as what they do call. So.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things we're going to do in this segment, which we're going to start here in a couple of minutes with Kim, is go back. I think Tom captures the emotion of what happens better than anybody, and knowing the product, knowing football, knowing basketball, and knowing where to go. And we're going to talk on Senior Day, or some of your favorite Senior Day or last memories of guys. We'll have about 8 to 10 pictures to show, which we'll start in a couple of minutes. But I wanted to talk too about some of your favorite stories. And you've met some great personalities. You're not shy, and it helps in this business to be not only aggressive on the field, but also willing to talk to guys. But you've had some fun experiences. We talked just off the air about the time that Mike Alstott gave you a little hint that on the first series of downs in a game, it would have been 1995, that he was going to be involved in a trick play. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, first of all, I don't want to make it sound like I'm a name dropper and with Ryan Kerrigan and Mike Alstott, because some of the lesser players, the players that were more obscure through the programs, have been just as great with their time, and and that's what has been so great about this career, is that you meet so many great people, and so many people who are leaving the program and remain friends even afterwards. But you mentioned Mike Alstott, and it was Mike's senior season, and he was warming up, and I had developed a relationship through being on the sidelines for almost every game with him. And I walked over and said hello to him, and he said, "Come here."
Yeah.
And he looks around, and it's like some sort of he's got some secret to tell me, like he's going to quit football or something. And he says, he looks around, make sure nobody's listening. He says, "First series, third play." I said, "What?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?" He goes, "Just watch." I said, "What do you mean? I'm watching every play. What is going to happen?" He goes, "Double reverse, flea flicker, pass." I'm not sure he had the terminology right, but what he said was that he was going to get the ball and throw it. So we had two photographers on the sidelines at the time, so we made sure we had one guy long and one guy short. And then, if you're going to get a tip like this, and wouldn't photography be a lot easier if you knew what the plays were coming, or what plays were coming? And sure enough, he threw the pass and it was completed. It wasn't a great play, 15, 20-yard pass completion, but I was excited that he felt secure enough that he could tell me, and knew that I wouldn't leak it to any of the other photographers, and it was a great situation.
And it worked, right? So that part of it's good. Now, talk about some of the guys that we don't hear about, that I've got some of the, I think of the Kurt Lichtenbergs, but I think of others. There have been some over the years that have just been those guys that have toiled in obscurity to some extent, and some of them we've captured in our magazine. We obviously tend to focus on the guys that play more, but there have been some great stories of guys that have made it through and had to toil to get this done.
Well, I look at kickers, and our old friend Jim Chaney used to just hate kickers.
Yeah.
But kickers, for some reason, maybe it's my personality, that they kind of gravitate toward me and I kind of gravitate toward them. I think also it's the fact when you're covering practice, they've got a lot of free time on their hands.
Yeah.
And so they figure, well, I'm tired of kicking balls. I'll go talk to somebody. Let's go talk to that clown with the cameras over there. But Ben Jones and Travis Dorsch, and Carson Wiggs. Carson was one of the pictures that I wanted to bring here today, and had to kind of edit him out, was when he climbed into the bleachers after beating Ohio State, and he puts his helmet on backwards, and he's almost like he's giving a papal conference to the masses out there of the thousands of people who have flooded onto the field. But those sort of guys have been great, and I really enjoy seeing them when they come back for games now. Ben's in real estate down near Zionsville, I believe, and he comes back frequently, and always have a great time when we get together and chat about his career and what he's doing now in business.
Yeah, and Drew Brees, obviously, a guy that we've had some fun experiences with Drew, but a guy that even in your realm, we've lucky enough to have several shoots with him when he was an undergrad and played here, but truly a guy that what you saw is what you got.
Well, I didn't think that at first.
Yeah.
The first time we took him on a special shoot, we went to Bunker Hill Air Force Base, Grissom Air Force Base, and he slept all the way over in the car. And I thought, well, what a big shot this guy is. And he hadn't even really cut his teeth in college football. I think this was before his sophomore season. And then once we got the shoot going, he kind of fired up. And on the way back, we started talking about Caddyshack, which turns out to be a movie that he has committed every single chapter and verse and every line to memory. So we kept firing lines back and forth, and you were part of that too.
Yeah.
And I think he just absolutely killed us with what he knew. And to this day, when I see him, I'll say, have you got that pool, Drew? Because Tom, I got a pool, got a pond. Pond would be good for you. And if anybody who knows Caddyshack, that's one of the lines from the movie, and it certainly draws a laugh from both of us, and it was a great memory that I'll never forget.
All right, well, just to make sure that we get them in our time frame here, Kim, we wanted to go ahead and start with these. And what these are this image here, obviously, Tommy, you can explain, but these are images, some of Tom's favorite images of guys kind of, not necessarily their senior day time, but they're kind of saying farewell. But let's talk about this one first.
Well, this is from the other night. This is from the Nebraska game, and I've been trying all season to get a shot of the three seniors together on the court, and it never worked out quite the way I'd hoped for it. And this one isn't a great picture, but the fact that I got the three of them together. And the problem is, this was right at the end of the game, after the game was well in hand, and they were back off from the free throw line. I believe I'm not sure who was shooting at the time, but they backed off so they wouldn't foul Nebraska, and they had a moment to just kind of relax, and we haven't had many moments this year to just kind of relax at the end of a game.
Yeah, I thought the thing I like about the picture is the fact you got the paint crew in the background. They're all kind of looking, they all kind of act like they're posed looking to the future type thing. I thought that you did a good job of queuing them up beautifully from the sideline. But yeah, I think Nebraska still would be calling timeout if given the chance. For those of you that were booing along with the rest of the fans as the Cornhuskers called 19 timeouts in the last 2 minutes. Next frame, Kim?
Well, we wanted to talk about the seniors, and this is another, you talk about great guys that you've come to know through sport, and look at the throng that is trying to get a piece of Stu Schweigert as he's walking off the field toward the locker room off of Ross-Ade Stadium. And some of the little kids are reaching out, and I know probably about 7 or 8 people in that photo just from being at the game all the time and being from Lafayette, and they want a little piece of him, whether it's a sweatband or a chin strap. And I kind of started my career as a fan that way. I was one of those guys that was on the sidelines, and I recall getting a chin strap from Jim Byrne.
There you go.
Great receiver for the Boilermakers in the middle 60s, I believe.
Yeah, 1967 was his last year.
So I would have been about 12 years old, and he gave me a chin strap, and a kid, he threw it to the fence. That's when the fence surrounded the field at the time. And a kid outfought me for the chin strap, and Jim Byrne, what a great guy, went back and got another chin strap and went back on the field and played. So it was a game-used chin strap, and those things are worth a lot more now than they were back then. But to me, it was just a memory.
Oh yeah.
And so that kind of got me hooked into the sports world. And I look at this picture and see how many people are just kind of gives you an idea of what these players go through with the fan support that they have.
And that was taken in Schweigert's senior year I think after the win against Notre Dame in late September 2003. And you talk about people in there. You get Kathy Wright-Eager's son Tori, who's now a junior in high school, is about age 8 or 9, sitting in the corner. And I know we've had a lot of people that have asked for that picture over the years because it's the faces in the crowd. But I love the fact when you get shots from the back too. Sometimes it really tells the story of what everybody else is experiencing. Next one, Kim. You know this guy, right? That's Gene Cady, 2005, his farewell day.
And you talk about Ryan Kerrigan and just pointing the camera at him and waiting for something to happen. This is the same situation with Gene. Gene, anybody who ever watched a Purdue game, and while Gene was in the sidelines, he would explode. His watch would go one way, his sport coat would go the other. but he was responsible for some great moments and some great players here, and this was a nice little tribute to him on his final day. But unfortunately, I think we lost that game, didn't we?
Purdue did. That was a tough year for Purdue. Only 7 wins and a game that the Boilermakers lost when they had a big lead against Minnesota. I look at that picture and say that kind of a strange, and you captured it maybe by design, kind of the loneliness of saying, that you are kind of by yourself at the end of this deal. And yet I thought that was one of the great moments in Mackey Arena history. And again, kind of the different look. And one thing that you've always done in your time with us is and it's because you've got 4.4 speed, you're able to move around and you're nimble and all that kind of stuff. At least at your age, you're very good there, and you move around and be able to get that different shot. I thought that was a very unique shot. Next, Kim. Talk about that one, Tom. Brandon Villarreal with Jim Lathrop, and we think that was 2005 after his last game against Purdue after a win against Illinois.
Right, and that was after a win, and you can tell Brandon was a great kid, but he wasn't. I think he probably knew his own football strengths and weaknesses, and probably knew that when he finished wearing the gold and black, that he wasn't going to be as successful as someone like Ryan Kerrigan or have the opportunity to play in the NFL or anywhere else in the Canadian Football League. And it was over. And this was even after a win. You think, well, let's go celebrate. And he looks up at the clock and sees the scoreboard and realizes that it is all over. And Jim Lathrop was one of the great characters of Purdue football, and walked over and gave him a hug. And the only thing you ever heard Jim say during the game was, back it up, back it up. He was the guy who was responsible for keeping the players back off the sidelines. But this was kind of a neat moment, and you just you knew that it was special.
Yeah, no question. Let's go on to the next one, Kim. Katie Geralds in 2007, right? And of course, Katie had a terrific career at Purdue and ended it on a very high note. But I think, as I recall, and we didn't talk about this before, but she kind of, as I remember too, that it was a challenge to get her off the court at the very end. I don't know, maybe I'm missing another time, but tell me what you remember about this shot.
Well, what I think is neat about this shot is there are a couple things. One is that Aaron Lawless was a teammate and came in in the same recruiting class, and what a great class that was. They finished as the second highest scoring duo in Purdue women's basketball history, behind a couple of ladies named Stephanie White and Kari Figgs. But what's neat about this picture is that you look at everybody else in the photo, and they all know how magical she was as a player. Even the opposing coaches applauding, Purdue Pete's applauding with his hammer. The referees are looking over to make sure they gave her enough time to get off the court and enjoy the moment. And Lawless, who for all intents and purposes could have been jealous of the limelight that she got, was right out there applauding with the rest of the fans of that game. And it was great to have players like that and to be able to watch them play, because boy, she could sure shoot.
She sure could. All right, Kim, let's fire to the next one. And Tom, this is one of my favorite images. Again, one from behind, but. That very cold day in November 2008 in Joe Tiller.
Well, Joe Tiller gave me a lot of opportunities to go to a lot of places that I never would have gone to. And as I said, growing up as a kid, when I was following Purdue football, I was too young to go to the Rose Bowl in following the 1967 season, and I always vowed that I wanted to go to at least to one Rose Bowl in my life, and he made that happen. And I think the thing you think about with photography is that there's always action and there's reaction. And you don't have to show his face, although we do have his face on the scoreboard. If you look closely enough there, you can see him on the Jumbotron in the background. But I was looking at all the photographers out there. I said, well, that's a picture that everybody's going to get. And you look for something a little bit different. And you walk behind him, and they had this whole kind of an amphitheater as he was addressing the crowd. And he was just a great guy. And the things that he brought that got Purdue football back on track, you can just never say enough about Joe Tiller.
Well, and I think one of the things there too is, and maybe I'm playing a little more into this, but the emotion. He got emotional during that speech, and as anyone would after a long career in football, and you almost can feel that standing behind him, that whole thing that everybody's kind of really focusing on what he has to say and playing on and listening to every word.
Well, that's probably my problem too, is that I get emotional. I think maybe I stood back there to make sure that wouldn't happen. If I saw Joe cry, I probably would have too.
That's the hard part of all this, I think, for those of us that are at an age where, the senior day is something, or saying goodbye also means saying, we all do that with our families, and that's always kind of rings home. Let's go on to the next one, Kim. And I love this picture. This is a Joe McConnell and the governor of the state of Indiana, still the governor of Indiana, of course, Mitch Daniels. Joe's farewell day, November 2009, Danny Hope's first season as head football coach, and Joe McConnell's last broadcast. And they did a lot of special things for Joe to make that. But I thought the fact that you got in there, it kind of shows that respect. And Mitch Daniels obviously had known Joe McConnell long before his days at Purdue. But tell us about that one, Tom.
Well, I think it's interesting that we finished the slideshow with two Joes, because they were two Joes, just two common guys, two ordinary guys who would do anything for you. And I certainly enjoyed every game that I got to travel with Joe.
Yeah.
And this was one of them. We went to Bloomington, and I got up in the press box at halftime. They had told me beforehand that the governor was going to make this presentation, and I think Joe was surprised by it. And if you listen to his comments after the game, you know that following Purdue for as long as he did meant a lot to him.
Yeah.
And he's still a big part of Purdue sports.
Yeah, and he is, and I thought he did a consummate, because I happened to be up in the booth working with him that day, and I was impressed by how it was still a very, very professional, respectful broadcast, which you would expect. Just did a great job of bringing that. And you're right, Tom, he's still very, very, we obviously have him on our website every Friday morning prior to home football or football games, and Joe's still very interested in what's going on. I think we still have a couple more left. Kim, go ahead.
No.
And Jason Taylor, same day, later in the day, what had turned to evening. Of course, that game, I believe, was a 3:30 start. And Jason went out, at least in that game, of course, with Ralph Bolden being hurt. Jason had a huge day. And I like the caption on the front of our magazine, because I think it was my bucket or it's our bucket. I can't remember exactly what we did. But tell us what went on in that picture.
Well, what's interesting is that after the team either goes and gets the bucket from the opposing sideline or goes and gets it from their own sideline, if they were able to retain it, there's a huge crush of players and photographers, and more than once I've seen people get rolled over and hurt. So you've got to kind of be prepared for the worst. And when he was walking off the field with the bucket by himself, I was just kind of overwhelmed. I said, "Whoa, what's this?" and turned around and got the picture right there. And there was a scoreboard in the background. I'm guessing you can't see it because it's a vertical picture. But Jason was one of those, was great.
Yeah.
He was one of the few people that they let travel with the team when he was injured.
Yeah.
Just because he was such a, usually if you're not part of if you're not going to play, you don't travel. But Jason went with the team because he was such a positive influence on everybody else, and he was a great kid.
And it was great that he had had a near 100 yards rushing in that game, had a terrific performance in the Boilermakers' pretty lopsided victory in Bloomington in 2009. I think there's still one more on there. Kim, fire away. No, there's a couple more on there, and I'll start with is really probably my all-time favorite, and that was senior night. Would have been 2008 and 2009, but Marcus Green among and on senior night, he was the lone senior, I believe, on that team as well for that day. But all the paint crew wore green shirts that day, and Marcus played it up perfectly.
Marcus was a wonderful character, and you can see the great big grin on his face. And the paint crew had green shirts to commemorate the day, and also the letters, because that's what they yelled every time he scored. He'd score a basket, and everyone would go green.
Yeah.
It's almost like Lou Jack now, where half of the crowd goes Lou and the other half goes Jack. And that's the sort of a bond you get between the players and the fans, and that's what we'll have to to recognize and celebrate, I think, in these next two games with the women on Sunday and the men on Wednesday night.
You're going to be busy on Sunday with 6 women. Even Dre Mingle will be part of it, though hopefully she will be back. But then obviously the 3, the men on Wednesday. We also have one last picture, and of course that was from this year. And I think that's a classic. I think that's James Shepard putting his teeth on the bucket. But tell us about this one as well.
Well, that's the seniors, and nobody is more proud of claiming the bucket during their last game than the seniors. And it almost looks like a group of cast-offs from the World Wrestling Federation with the hair and biting the pee from the bucket. But that was a great moment too. And you always look for something different, and you get a chance to shoot something like that. It's pretty neat. But we talked about the seniors, and you got 2 senior games coming up, and I think maybe for the players it's not as big a deal as what maybe you and I make it out to be, because they obviously have a lot more basketball to play. The men have to get ready and play a game against a group
from Bloomington.
And the women obviously will have many games left in the Big Ten tournament. So
And we'll play at home again, too.
Right. So I think maybe it's a bigger deal for us as we kind of approach and recognize our own mortality.
Yeah,
And
I think that's
also
what
it's
it
probably a
comes-
bigger deal for the parents.
Yeah.
I talked to Rob's mother after the game the other night, and she was already a little bit
Yeah.
sad about knowing that it's going to come to an end. You know, you get used to seeing your son on the court, and you don't know what the future is going to hold.
Yeah.
But when they come down that tunnel and the band fires up the fight song, it's a great moment for everybody, and I think that's something that they're going to miss.
Yeah, I think there's no question about that, and that's the essence and the part of the fun. As I say, when we work with Tom's Images, it's Christmas every day, and we get to look at them because it's a lot of fun to see the story told from a different point of view, and you do it as well as anyone. Well, Tom, thanks so much for joining us. We're going to do this again. I think it would be fun to do this from time to time, and plus we want you to be on the show at least as many times as Danny Hope has been on. Then we'll be tied, but. And it'll be a lot of fun to look at some of it because there are a lot more images of Tom's that you can enjoy on our website and in our magazine as well. All right, well, we thank you very much for joining us. We want to thank Kim Caldwell and Patsy and Gordon for all their help today. And we had a lot of fun today with today's show. And Kim, thanks for and Gordon for the special work of getting those photos on there. And, of course, our sponsors, Hilton Garden Inn, State Farm agent Trent Johnson, Follett's and Purdue Pride, and, of course, West Point Steakhouse. We'll be back next week, and we actually have some guests scheduled. I think we're actually going to have Clark Kellogg on next week, along with Tim Tibesar, Purdue's defensive coordinator. Will be on our show, but that can always change in a week's time. You never know how things will go, but we'll look forward to joining you and having you join us a week from today on Gold and Black Live.